You're good.
All right, so we're live once again. It's August 7th, right around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to Dissent. This is officially the first episode of our actual podcast. I'm pretty excited to see where everything leads. And tonight we have, once again, my co-host, Ali Akbar. And Ali, how you doing today?
I'm good. I had some stuff done yesterday. Not yesterday. Monday, as you know, but some of the viewers don't. But my face is currently peeling. I've got this killer zit right there. But you know, the show must go on, right?
Of course, most definitely. Yeah, it's this week we're going to be discussing a lot of different topics, and we've had. I mean, our country is in, I would say, chaos. From police shootings to Trump just completely imploding this past week. We got $400 million going to Iran. There's all sorts of things happening. And I just want to start off by saying, if you haven't followed us on Twitter, our actual Twitter handle is @Dissent Show. So that's DISSENT Show. And if you want to communicate with us or kind of interject into the discussion here, feel free to go ahead and tweet at us using the hashtag Dissent, DISSENT. If you'd like to mention either myself or Ali, my actual Twitter handle is @DevinWills, and Ali is @Ali. Some of us aren't too lucky with that. He lucked out to get his first name.
You got your name.
I have my full name. I mean, it'd be nice to have just @Devin. It's Devin Wills it's too many syllables. Ali is literally
Devon.
Yeah, exactly. It's not @Devon Willis. I get that a lot. So. But I wanted to open up about the most recent happenings in Chicago. This Paul O'Neill shooting that took place.
Was that in Chicago?
It was in Chicago. It's I mean, I haven't seen as much outcry as I did with the Philando Castile and the Alton Sterling. I don't know if that's because it isn't sounds super biased, but. I don't know if it's because it's in a predominantly Democratic area, because I mean I haven't heard much more than just a couple of peeps here and there, a couple of shares on Facebook, and then it was trending on Twitter, but we can get anything to trend on Twitter. So if those of you who don't know, Paul O'Neill was a 18-year-old.
My Periscope audience wants to see the rest of my office, so I'm giving them a little tour of the godlike complex I've got surrounding me. But
make sure you get a shot of the rug. Get a shot of the rug.
Oh, and we got that cow because I'm a Fort Worth boy.
Cow.
Yeah.
So, as far as I was saying, if you haven't heard of Paul O'Neill, he was an 18-year-old African American male who was stealing a car. It was a Jaguar. And he wound up taking off in that car. Police opened fire on the car, and then he ran into a police SUV, exited his vehicle, and then was chased down by cops and was shot in the back. During the video, there were cops that said, "Oh, well, he shot at us. There were bullets flying at us, that kind of thing." But come to find out, he was completely unarmed. There wasn't an actual
hard to shoot without a gun, isn't it?
Exactly. So there's some very questionable things that even took place where one guy walks up and kind of kicks him and nudges him and starts cussing him out. And he's like, "Yeah, that's right, you bitch ass mother effer." And it's sad. I mean, to see I have a lot of friends that are police officers, a lot of friends that each and every day they put on that badge and they serve their communities. And so I stand, I back the blue. However, I would not, honestly, I couldn't see the people that I know as police officers acting in such careless
disregard when they're engaging a suspect or the citizens that they're called to serve and protect, or the surrounding community. Devin, I don't know many of the details because in these type of situations, because I'm black, because I'm conservative, because I've spoken out about a number of these shootings, people expect me to speak out against all of them, and I just frankly don't have the bandwidth or the time. But I will say of the details that I do know, they're troubling. and they should be troubling for anyone who likes law and order, anyone who likes the good officers, anyone who backs the blue, as you say, because when bad officers or untrained officers, either of those categories, do something awful, it jeopardizes, as we saw in Dallas, as we saw in Baton Rouge, it threatens the lives of innocent officers. It threatens the lives of all Americans because we are all protected under law and order, and that requires that the enforcers of the law follow the law, and they do it in an orderly way, in a fair way. We have rules for how prosecutors should conduct themselves, not just how they prosecute cases, but how they bring on charges, what sentences they pursue. There's rules for that for prosecutors and for law enforcement officers. So it doesn't help our country when officers are kicking dead bodies, handcuffing dead bodies, or shooting at a car that's been stolen. It's improper, and I guess we'll learn more details as they come. But it's another situation where, again, a lot of people, if you like Donald Trump said that there's a training problem with police, and I agree with that. We need to better train and better equip our officers, and I agree with the Dallas police department chief when he said that we're asking officers to do too much. We need to consider broad reform, and once the two sides start realizing that, well, here on the right, we're calling for reform. Here on the right, Trump is concerned about the standards of training. Then I think that we'll have an honest conversation. But as long as we have these two sides, we're going to be pinned in this black versus cop battle that really doesn't address the racial situation, the racial reality where we are now.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, you mentioned race in this. I mean, I saw somebody post the other day. They said twice as many white males are shot than African American males, and that statistic is true. But at the same time, you have to take into consideration there are over twice as many white Americans as there are African American. So, yeah, the stats are true, but this should. My response to that was that this should shed a light on something that's much more broad, not just people are saying this is kind of hyperbolic, but the cops are going out hunting African Americans and all that kind of stuff. No, there should be a broader stroke here, looking at why are so many people being shot by cops. I mean, yes, I do believe there's justification at times, especially whenever somebody has a weapon and is a imminent threat to a police officer. However, oftentimes, just like we saw Dylan Noble out in Fresno, California, he was shot. He did not have a weapon on him. Neither did he have a weapon in his truck or on his person, and he was shot 4 times, twice standing up, went face first into the ground, was shot once by a pistol, then shot again by a shotgun at nearly point-blank range while he was on his back. He had already been shot 3 times. I actually got into this. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see. I mean, he was a white kid, and it's sad no matter what the race is. So the reason I bring up his race here is because, I mean, it's an overarching problem. There's this incitement of fear. If I was a police officer, I'd find it very difficult to be on social media, very difficult to watch CNN or the mainstream media. There's such a, it gives me chills just thinking about it, because when you read what's going on, when you see these things, when you see like I mentioned last week, the crazy videos of people using this crazy narrative of open season on whites and cops are hunting blacks, and all these things that are not accurate. They don't actually point to the truth at all. They're blanket statements for a wide range of people instead of looking at the actual individual, looking at the individual cops, looking at the looking at the different organizations involved. We blanket this between whites and blacks, or blacks and the cops, and all of this kind of stuff. And with the Dylan Noble situation, I actually got into a little bit of an argument on Twitter. I don't try.
Devin arguing on Twitter?
I know. I was pulling an Ali card there, but I try not to. Yeah. I try not to troll anybody, but one thing that the police chief said was that he was not able to speak on whether or not they had true, like, justified fear. And the fear aspect, I can understand being fearful for your life. I can understand if a guy is charging you, taking matters into your own hands. I can understand that. However, it was reasonable fear is the actual, exactly what he said. He said he doesn't know if it was justified reasonable fear. He couldn't answer that question at that time. I watched the videos over and over again. There's two different angles, and then there's like a civilian angle that caught, the shooting after the Dylan was on the ground. And I hate to say that they were trigger-happy cops, but I'm a bird hunter. I shoot hundreds of ducks and geese every year. My family is huge into hunting. I understand how a shotgun works. I understand how buckshot, lead shot, steel shot, I know how it all works. And if I was trying to not kill someone and was trying to make sure they were injured enough not to be a physical threat to me, I would have shot them with my pistol at 10 feet away, or shot them at, with something that is one bullet, one projectile in a place that I could be accurate with. I would not shoot a 19-year-old kid lying on his back with a shotgun. I mean, all it takes is one little pellet to hit him in the right organ and to kill him. With a 9mm or 40 cal, I usually carry a 40. If I'm shooting somebody, you can shoot them in the leg, you can shoot them in the arm, you can do something in order to keep them subdued in a way you can move forward, you can give them medical attention, and they're not, he did nothing illegal. He didn't obey the orders of the police, but that's not means to be shot and killed. And it's a very sad situation. I am not against the cops once again, but there are some questionable decisions. And one thing I've said since the shooting of the 12-year-old boy in Ohio, there's something wrong with the approach.
Yeah, Tamir Rice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much. I mean, if you're not familiar with that story, he was in a he was in a park that is known for some gang violence and activity. Somebody in the neighborhood called and said there's a young African American male carrying a gun, pointing it at people, and so the 911 dispatcher got on it. Is sharing this same storyline with the cops. The cops pull up. I mean, mere just like maybe 10, 15, 20 feet at the max away from this 12-year-old boy. And in less than 4 seconds, they had gotten out of the car and shot him. And what he had in his hand was an airsoft gun with no orange tip. So technically, it's illegal to have something like that because it looks so much like a real gun. But the approach. If I know somebody has a firearm, I don't run in there and try to take over the situation. I mean, much like in Dallas, whenever that I forget the shooter's name, probably because it wasn't posted all over the place, thank God. But they used a robot to kill him. They talked and talked, and he just wanted to kill cops, and they took a robot and literally blew him up. And I'm not saying that should be the precedent that's set here, that we should sit there and talk with somebody and then blow them up or anything like that. But I'm saying that there has to be a different tact in approach, because one of the reasons with Dylan Noble that the cops were so frantic when they got out of the car is because they got a call earlier that there was a young boy wearing camo, carrying a rifle, and got into a black truck. So they already had this preconceived notion that this kid in this black truck is wearing camo, he's got a gun, and he's going to do harm. And so, I mean, you can see it in the body cam. The cop is driving. He's got his gun pulled out on his steering wheel, which, in my opinion, is incredibly, incredibly unsafe.
I like what this commenter is saying to me. That's too expensive. Blowing up robots isn't viable long term. I totally agree. It says, can we talk about what the markets are? Commenter on Periscope, if you could retype that. It didn't come in fast enough, but I think they want us to talk about markets. But, Devin, I mean, how would you feel if I talked about this? They want us to talk about Crooked Hillary. They need to check out our Twitter account. We have a highlight reel where I talked about Crooked Hillary last week and her
for about 3 minutes.
Yeah, and her crooked record with the State Department. But how would you feel let's just be frank with our audience. If you got a text from me, I mean, sometimes we've texted each other, been on the phone when we've been pulled over. How would you feel to learn? How would you feel to learn that after texting me, or me and you texting after being pulled over, you saw my name trending on Twitter?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as far as okay. Speaking of that, I mean that brings up. I watched all the Corinne Gaines videos today, and if you're not familiar with Corinne Gaines, she was pulled over in March for not having license plates and all this stuff, and she resisted arrest. She recorded it all. It's like a 20-minute video. She had her little boy in the car telling him to record and that they're going to fight, against the cops, and that she wasn't going anywhere and they're going to have to murder her. Literally, she says this to the cops. It was a very unfortunate circumstance. And then this past Monday, she failed to appear in court, and so they went to go pick her up on an arrest warrant, and she was sitting in her apartment with the shotgun, and she was shot dead. The cops unfortunately shot the son as well. He's from what I understand, he got. I don't know if it grazed his cheek or literally hit him through the cheek, but he is still alive. He went to the hospital and is he's doing fine. So he's going to live, from what I understand. But it's very. I feel like there's a very narrow line. I mean, almost a non-existent line at this point. That you get to this point when you're getting pulled over, and 1 minute you can be alive and saying, "Hey, I got a concealed carry permit. My firearm's on me." And the next minute you could cease to live. I mean, there's a very fine line. And I think that, if I saw you on Twitter trending and it wasn't just because of normal Ali shenanigans, I would be very worried. And I'd like to think that my 17 years of experience or 16 years of experience of being your friend and understanding your mindset I believe that if you were pulled over, you'd be able to adequately control the situation. It's like, for instance, whenever you were driving through Virginia, and I told you probably shouldn't speed because there's cops around here, even though I've never been pulled over, and then you got pulled over like 2 or 3 times in the span of a week. You lived. I mean, you're still here clearly, and I think that's a lot of the issue these days is that whenever you're a concealed carry holder or you're an African American, some people just don't know the best ways to handle situations such as that. I've heard people time and time again, next time I get pulled over, I'm just putting my hands on the glove box, my hand on the steering wheel, I am not moving, that
you
sort of thing.
You have to live in a country where that's required to exit a situation alive.
Well, 100%. But it's like I was saying earlier. I mean, this goes back to the mainstream media and even social media. There's so many people who are talking about these, it's inciting fear, not only in the public but also in the minds of police officers. If a police officer can't go to sleep at night without thinking, I read this post on Facebook or I read this post on Twitter, and it was about all these people who are anti-cop, and they're you see all these stories. For instance, the police officer, the name escapes me, I apologize, but he got called to a house, I do believe, and was shot. And in Missouri, right after the Dallas shooting, it was a normal traffic.
Georgia, Missouri.
It was a normal traffic stop, and you have these guys getting out of the car and executing police officers. I mean, if I was a police officer and I saw that, I would be walking around.
Quit.
Yeah, and that's. I hate to bring this up, and he'll know if he watches this that I'm bringing it up. I have a friend that served in the Navy for 6 years, Special Forces, who's SWCC, and he works in a very rough city, in a very rough part of that city here in Virginia. And every time this comes up, I think to myself, I've been around him. I understand his training. I mean, being in the military extends training a lot further than a lot of these police academies do. And I would trust him to make a split-second decision and save someone's life before trying to take it. And, I was actually telling this to somebody earlier today. I went to a birthday dinner. Shout out to Josh Boria. Happy birthday. And as far as our conversation, I just told him, I said, there's got to be some sort of training to give police officers a peace of mind that says, you know what, without a shadow of a doubt, I can go into today not fearing for my life. Not because of a narrative of the mainstream media, not because of something they read online or anything like that, but because they've been trained enough to understand how, we have a gentleman on YouTube actually commenting about, hand-to-hand, like close quarters combat, stuff like that, that they're trained enough to trust their skill set, trained enough to be able to, jump into a situation where they'll be able to handle multiple, scenarios. And, I mentioned this not too long ago that whenever I was a kid, I wanted to be a police officer. The next year I wanted to be a firefighter. The next year I wanted to be in the Army. But growing up as a young kid, in my mind, I always saw a law enforcement officer or somebody in the military to be somebody who was mature enough to discern, what is right, what is correct, and what will save lives instead of take lives. And as a young kid, that was just the concept that was in my mind. And now I see, like with Paul O'Neill, being shot in the back, then being kicked, cussed out, and then, some guy running his mouth is on camera. I don't know the exact quote, but something along the lines of, "Oh, great, now I'm going to have 30 days of desk work." What is that? I mean, there's something wrong.
Well, there's a pathology. A study was done decades ago that showed that officers and criminals have the same pathology. A lot of it's centered around pride, boasting, stuff like that. And that isn't to say that cops are criminals or that cops are whatever. It's the same type of process of thinking occurs on both sides of the badge. And, it was a warning sign, and I think it still is. And I've said it before, and I don't want to catch flack from any of my conservative friends. I'm conservative. My mother served in our armed forces and was an MP and did some, some other stuff, with high-level security clearance while she was in the military. But I don't think that we have the same people going in the police force that we had coming after World War II and stuff. Whereas we had military guys going in the police forces. Right now, my friends who are serving in our police departments across the country did not serve in Iraq or Afghanistan. And my friends who served in Iraq and Afghanistan are either still in the military, they got used to the hell, or they went out and they got corporate jobs, or they went to school, and a couple of them are looking for jobs. It's a different batch of people who are going into police departments. That's just a fact. And that isn't and like any team, anybody who's ran a company or run a team knows that your team can compound strength or it can contract with weaknesses. And we need stronger people of better training and a higher moral fiber and people who love to be above reproach even in spite of their safety. We need more of those people going into our police departments. And we do need to teach a culture of young boys and young girls to start respecting our officers. But I do want to remind people that only one of those obligations is constitutionally mandated, and that is that the police do not kill people without due process. That one is mandated. The cultural disrespect that we have isn't unique to millennials or Gen Z. This has been going on for multiple generations. So this isn't unique to us. This isn't unique to the black community, and it's not even, it's not mandated by the Constitution. What is mandated by the Constitution is that you are promised your rights, and it's a little thing called liberty, and we are the last beacon out there for this, or we're going to become a banana republic, which, we might. But speaking of bananas, Rio is a hot mess. I mean, the headlines, I every time I think that a headline can't top itself, a body washes ashore. I saw that one of the canoers, or one of the guys competing in a boating competition, fell out of his boat and hit a couch at the bottom of the course. And then you got the Zika virus, and here you have in the States where Democrats didn't vote for the Zika funding that Republicans were pushing, and now Miami's been hit. I'm worried. I'm here in Baton Rouge. We have a huge mosquito problem. I'm worried to go outside. Thank God I've been trapped inside for the past week.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I was just perusing through YouTube a couple weeks ago, and Vice actually put up a little segment about Rio, and it was like, look at all the things that Rio has built, and then apparently there's a highway that leads from the airport to the actual Olympic stadiums and Olympic Village and all of that, and there's a 30-foot or something Donald Trump would absolutely love. There's a huge wall, and they call it a sound barrier, and it's painted, it looks nice, and all that kind of stuff. But on the opposite end of that wall is the slums. It's one of those places that you're like, oh, look at this wall, and then if you just peek through a hole, you'd be like, oh my God, there's literally an issue here that needs to be addressed. It's super unfortunate that I was actually. I watch a lot of documentaries apparently and read a lot as well. But as far as the last thing I watched it's called Hitler's Olympics, and it's actually on Netflix. It talks about the 1936 Olympics, and
is the title of that just Hitler's Olympics?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I got to put that on my watch list.
Yeah, it shows kind of the transition into the modern day Olympics, which is the big parades and the festivals and everything up front. And one of the main things in '36 was they were trying to. It's pretty much just free propaganda. They were trying to put out this image that this is Nazi Germany. We're huge.
They call that a home field advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it worked, and it was a huge success. They even Usain Bolt actually broke the 100-meter and 200-meter world record in that same stadium in 2009. It wasn't during the Olympics; it was during the World Championships. But I mean, this actual stadium that was built in 1936 is still functioning today. Still has seen world records broken, all that kind of stuff. But I bring that all up to say you can see a lot of how hosting the Olympics is this political feat, because you can put out the propaganda that this place is amazing. You can put out the propaganda that we have everything that we need. I mean, look at Beijing, for instance. I mean, the Bird's Nest, in my opinion, is single-handedly one of the greatest stadiums of all time. Like, I think it's better than the mothership that the Dallas Cowboys play in. I mean, it is an amazing, amazing stadium. And so it's just funny how you can see that. And same thing with Rio. You can see everything that they've built, and you can see all the great facilities and all these things. But then there's these little slip-ups of like, oh, there's garbage in the bottom of their ocean, or in the bottom of the water. There's slums right on the other side of the sound barrier. It's really sad to see that that there's not a better approach on a personal level to ensure that people are not displaced, and that the money that is being spent to kind of resurrect these cities is not spent to help better the civilians and the people of that city, But hey, I will say this: the great thing about the Olympics, we did get the first gold medal. It was in a shooting competition, which is pretty awesome, by a teenage girl. Yeah. And somebody was saying
17 or 18.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I know she was a teenager. That's what the NRA said. But no, it was funny. Somebody was talking about it on Facebook earlier, and they're like, well, it was only like 10 meters or something like that. I'm like, okay, to be the best.
Hey, gold is gold.
Yeah, exactly. To be the best in the world at shooting an air rifle at 10 meters or however long it was. I mean, I'll say this. A youth minister of mine growing up was part of one of the best high school football programs in the world, in the nation, really. I guess we're like the only country that's really good at football. Yes, and that's not a knock on rugby or anything like that. But anyways, he played for South Lake Carroll, and they won state in like 94, 96 whenever he went to school there. And it was only like 2 and 3A at that time. So it wasn't the biggest school ever or anything like that. But you know what he said about it? It was like, we weren't required to beat the 5A teams. We weren't required to beat the 4A teams. We were required to be the best football team within the league that we were given. And they won it. And then they went on to win 5A state championships. At one point, they were the #1 high school football team in the nation. But, I say that to bring up, like, who cares if it was like a two meter shoot? I mean, she's the best within the parameters and the game that she's playing, and it's really awesome to see that it's a teenager and that it's somebody young representing our country. And I'm excited to see the rest of the Olympics. Excited. I actually didn't keep up with anything that happened today. I know that Michael Phelps was swimming today, and I want to check up on that. But anyway. So.
I wonder if we got a lot of people here on Periscope, and I love y'all. Sometimes when you're talking, Devin, I'll play with these people on Periscope, and so if you guys on our YouTube video or highlight reel see me playing kind of below the screen, I'm entertaining my Periscope audience in their comments, their hearts, and their love, and appreciate that. But I'd love for somebody in Periscope or on YouTube to tell us what's the medal count. What are we in gold and silver and bronze, and then how do we stack up in golds across the other countries? I'd love to find that out. But Devin, would you go to Rio? Be honest. Would you go to Rio if somebody paid for your trip?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
I wouldn't. Maybe I'm feeling old and vulnerable, but I don't think I'd. I hate mosquitoes, you know that, and I'm not a pregnant woman, but I could be one day. If Caitlyn Jenner has taught us anything, I could be one day, and so I don't think I would go even if someone paid me.
Well, I'll say this. One thing I actually like. So I'm a huge football, baseball nerd. Love both the sports, America's pastime, and then one of the greatest sports ever to be created. But I'm not a big fan of soccer. However, the World Cup.
But the world is.
Yeah, the world is excited about soccer, yay. But I would go to the World Cup. To be part of that international community, the excitement. I think that's one thing that really brings me into the Olympics is, the opening ceremonies and seeing everybody, how they're represented. And it's like today. I didn't cry. I'm not going to say I cried, but I got a little emotional. Vietnam won their first gold medal ever today. There's a guy shooting an air rifle as well, but their first gold medal ever. And just kind of try to put yourself in those shoes. First gold medal for your entire country. That's amazing. A country 40 years ago that was in turmoil and chaos, and took 40 years to come out of that and win a gold medal. I think that's an extraordinary story, and I think it's very exciting to see that actually take place for an individual. But I do think we might be running through some issues because I was trying to pull up our live stream on another computer, and it's just kind of it looks like it's loading. I don't know, but ARod0291, I appreciate your comments. I'm actually kind of responding here and there, trying to engage you. But if you can actually hear this in live, like real time, let us know, because it'd be nice to know who can see us and who can't, and see what's happening tech-wise. So, but yes.
Yeah. Actually, I just got a. No, that has nothing to do with the internet, but that's really actually my Periscope is glitching in and out, and then I just got a notification from an app. Maybe there's an EMP blast because but I still got a lot of people in Periscope, so I'm happy about that. But I got a message from an app saying that we're not going to name names, but a certain mobile carrier is having technical difficulties. So it's kind of weird if Google, Periscope, and some cell phone carrier is having problems. In this day and age, you can't help but stay vigilant and get paranoid.
The NSA is trying to
stay vigilant, get paranoid. That's going to have to be a shirt from Dissent.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, Giuseppe, take that down. But yeah, hey, to answer your question though, I would go to Rio just to witness it. I would love to be on that beach watching that sand volleyball tournament, and outside of that and swimming, and also hoping that Usain Bolt beats the world record again. No offense to other sports, gymnastics.
You gotta feel bad for the American guys running against Usain Bolt, because most Americans are probably rooting for Usain Bolt. I know I am. I'm just like, he could go run for Russia.
Well, I found myself rooting for the Australian. He won like the say 400-meter medley in swimming yesterday.
Yeah.
The Chinese swimmer, I forget their names. Forgive me for not being read up on swimming, especially at the international level, because I hate swimming personally. I'm fearful of drowning. I don't fear of burning, drowning, or burning, getting in a car accident, being shot, or anything like that. My biggest fear is drowning. And we went to the lake the other day, and I swam like.
This show is gonna break the stereotypes. I am an excellent swimmer. I am fast. I am agile.
I didn't say I was bad at swimming. I just fear drowning. Like, God would have given us gills or whatever in order to breathe underwater if we were meant to be underwater. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think I'm afraid of all forms of torturous death. Drowning and being burned alive are not among my favorites. In fact, they rank really high on the ones I'm
trying to avoid. Well, yeah, let's avoid being burnt or drowning. But yeah, I think that we'll see how the rest of the Olympics wind up. Hopefully that the United States will stay up at the top of the medals won. Anybody respond to your actual Periscope?
No, not yet. The retention is really high on the Periscope, but nobody's Googling the medals for me, so frown face. But I'm sure somebody will take care of it now that they know I'm serious.
The A-Rod on YouTube I don't know if this is a joke or not, but it sounds like it. He said he's Cuban here, pro swimmer since birth. So anyway, no comment.
You gotta be if you're you gotta be if you want your freedom sometimes.
Very, very true. Very true. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna go grab me a bottle of water. I meant to grab one before we started. I feel really embarrassed saying that, but Ollie, share some wisdom about Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary. Let's talk about Trump's bad week. So Donald Trump, whatever you believe about him. Now, I guess here's where the disclosures come in, right? I'm voting for Donald Trump. I left the Republican Party a couple of months ago. I personally hung out with Donald Trump, helped staff him. He was remarkable to me, but his policies, which I agree with most of them, are being presented in a bombastic and really, frankly, a stupid way. I think he's an intelligent man who is practicing stupidity religiously, and I don't get it. I don't respect it, and I can't be made to love it. But that being said, if you're at all fair and if you're at all objective, you have to come back and say that he had a really bad week, and it might be longer than that. His campaign inappropriately responded to the snub that Senator Ted Cruz of Texas gave them. Then moving into the DNC, the RNC had a wonderful facility where there was a lot of press. So the RNC did a wonderful job of trying to counter program against the DNC, but the Trump campaign itself didn't. In fact, they had Omarosa, who was promoted to Director of African American Outreach, talking about foreign policy at the RNC event. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre, and to be frank, it's batshit crazy what's happening on the Donald Trump campaign. And those of you who are on the Trump campaign, chugga chugga choo, but if you're not encouraging your candidate to run a better campaign, you're going to lose because you decided to be a drone. And that's not what America's about. That's not the America I'm signing up for any candidate of any party, period. Yeah. And then how he did the Khan family. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about Khan and his speech, but and I don't think that Gold Star families are somehow above being debated with when they're talking about public policy, especially public policy that has nothing to do with their Gold Star or the tragic loss of a family member. And I honor their service, their sacrifice, and their son's service and his sacrifice. But Donald Trump handled that in a bombastically childish, immature way, where he could have totally pivoted, and he could have counterpunched Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And it was kind of ominous that she says, "Here's a man who can be baited with a tweet. How can he be trusted with nukes?" And he just spends a week shoving his foot into his mouth, where even his allies had to host an intervention. And by the way, the intervention did happen. The publications reporting that an intervention with Donald Trump didn't happen don't know anything, but I know that it happened. I can tell you guys that.
I mean, to go from saying we're not going to endorse Ryan and McCain to going ahead and endorsing them is pretty much, you can tell somebody came in, slapped some hands, and helped move this along. And just as you were saying, those who support Donald Trump, to sit back and be like, oh, and kind of turn your nose up to what he's doing and say, oh, he's got it taken care of. He's going to win the election. He's going to be able to do this. You got to be crazy to think that. I mean, the best thing, in my opinion, that Donald Trump could have done over the past several months, really, is sit back, let WikiLeaks do their thing, let the FBI do their thing, let the Congressional Oversight Committee do their thing, and not say a word. Because I know that people say there's no such thing as bad press. Even bad press is good press, all that kind of stuff. But still, the embarrassment, the things that are happening, it's who's the guy that's on the Daily Show now? The British guy, or I forget where he's from. But
Trevor.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, that's him. So he made a joke about how whenever Hillary Clinton was.
He was an unfunny fuck.
I mean, I can't stand him. I've never been a huge fan of the Daily Show. I like Jon Stewart, but I feel like a lot of people take that as literal news, and they don't see the satirical, parody type weight that it presents. They don't take that into consideration. But anyway, he got on there and was just talking about how Hillary Clinton was giving her acceptance speech and doing the whole DNC thing, and then there's Donald Trump whining like a little baby, vomiting on himself, needing all the attention, and just did a press conference in the same state. And with the debacle in which was the DNC, with the email scandals and DWS, resigning and then being hired onto the Hillary campaign immediately following, I mean, I would have sat back and just watched Rome burn. But instead, he continues to
amplify their bad press. Amplify their bad press. Don't pick a fight yourself and insert yourself into a fight between two losers or two scandals.
Oh yeah, well, most definitely. I could definitely see that. If we're gonna get to debate time, and somebody's gonna make a meme. I might create it myself. Who knows? But they're gonna ask some sort of like foreign policy question, and it's just gonna have Donald Trump and the word squirrel right next to his head, because it doesn't matter what's going on or what kind of, it's blatant, the things that he could jump on to destroy Hillary or attempt to destroy Hillary. But he sits there and he just says the same thing over and over again. He says ridiculous things, and it's really pathetic. I mean, and like I was saying, if you support him and you're going to sit back and let this happen, the whole objective in order to win the election is to have a conversation with those who don't support Trump. Have a conversation with those who think differently than you.
That's what it's called, building a majority,
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Electoral College of 270,
Yeah, I find it very difficult to think that he's going to win if more people have to put out fires than carrying on conversations of, hey, this is where he stands. He's an excellent guy, and here on this subject, he's excellent on this subject. Instead of like boosting him and showing the great platforms and the great plan he has for when he becomes president. Most of the time people are trying to put out fires. Things that he said 8-10 months ago.
Right.
Like I was saying last week. He said back in November, ban all the Muslims, and then he gave a very detailed speech at the RNC that gave some more input on that notion, and people just ignored the RNC side of things and thought, well, back in November and December he said this, why didn't he give details then? And it's just over and over again, putting out fire after fire after fire. And if you support him, get out there and educate people, get out there and let people know why you support him, the good things that he's going to bring. You can't just say he's got it, because clearly he doesn't. And that's like people for Hillary. I would encourage you to get out and talk about all the good things she's done, but let's be honest.
Which is amazing because, yeah, she's so crooked. She's so bad. Her record as Secretary of State, bad. Her record as Senator kept her from the Democratic nomination in 2008. Her record as a First Lady involved stealing china and selling the Lincoln bedroom for DNC fundraising. Her record as First Lady of Arkansas, and when Bill Clinton was an Attorney General, involves bullying women. Her record prior to that involves mocking and laughing at rape victims. And let's not forget that she called young black men super predators in the 90s as First Lady. I mean, she has gotten away with murder. And a lot of people believe both literal and figurative, and
not to mention there's been mysterious deaths surrounding her even this week.
Well, that's what we just did mention. but people ought to Google that. I saw a listicle trending, not trending, but among the. I follow a very diverse crowd, and I'm very proud of it. I say some diverse things and some crude things on Twitter, and I'm proud of that. But it was like 4 people have mysteriously died who opposed Clinton in the past, whatever months, and it's weird. It's freaking weird. This doesn't happen to any other candidate. At some point, it's her fault, or fate's trying to send us a smoke signal, folks. And I said it now, and I'll say it again. I said it for years, for 4 years, a Republican would not be able to win in 2016 unless they turned it into a referendum election. And I said they couldn't turn it into a referendum election because the media is so against us and preventing us from controlling the narrative or even taking it over fairly. But Donald Trump has given us that cure. However, he doesn't know how to operate in the arena he created. So there's this interesting mess where a generic Republican would probably be stomping Hillary Clinton, and no, that's not sexist, right now. But a generic Republican wouldn't have the environment that Donald Trump himself has created and forced the media to react to. So it's this interesting hot mess. But if the election was today, it'd be a landslide for her, and that's with 60% of Americans finding her untrustworthy. That's for 2 or 3% of Democrats who are voting for her, believing she belongs in prison. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating that the least liked candidate in American history, Hillary Clinton, is running against a more unliked person, and part of that is self-inflicted, but a lot of that is the media. But we already knew that was going to happen. If you know that that's going to be the terrain, you put the tires on that are going to drive on that terrain.
No. Yeah, and every 4 years I say the same thing. We have conservatives. I've been part of the Republican Party since I was able to vote. I find myself leaning towards more libertarian than anything these days. I'm not going to say I consider myself an independent, but it's heading in that direction. However, I always say the conservative or the right of center. We have 4 years to find somebody who is conservative, but yet moderate enough to appeal to the moderate voters. We need to find somebody who can match President Obama in articulation and charisma and the way he delivers a message. I mean, there's something about it, and we have yet to be able.
Swagger.
Exactly, and we have yet to. I hate saying this, but this is where we've come to in our country. We have to find somebody to match him in his celebrity. Because if we can't have somebody that will match him in the looks, the competence as far as the way he perceives himself, of knowing and standing on what he believes in, unless we can find somebody, like I said, center right, who can match that, can address the public and sway the actual public to following him, we're going to be screwed. And we were screwed 4 years ago. We had second place. If the Republican Party does what they did back in 2012. In 2020, we're going to have Ted Cruz running for president because we always get second best from the 4 years prior. I mean, it's pretty pathetic, to be honest. I mean,
and
there's
just probably support him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say I wouldn't support him. I am from Texas. I'm pretty faithful to that as well. But as far as I saw a tweet actually earlier today, or a little meme, and it said 319 million people, and these are the two best idiots we could come up with. Talking about Trump and Hillary, and it's just very sad that we can't spend 4 years finding somebody who can really stand up. We just find somebody that's like, I've given thousands upon thousands of dollars to liberal organizations and all these things, and I can say whatever I want, and sometimes I react like a adolescent, but let me be your nominee. There's some things that, like I said last week, there's some things that Trump says that I 100% support. There's some things that leave me shaking my head, wondering how did somebody with so much power, influence, and money get to where he's at when he talks off the cuff like that. And it's not even about being politically incorrect or politically correct or anything like that. It's about having couth. It's about being able to talk in a way that is productive to people. It's like, Billy Madison, whenever Adam Sandler goes on that rant, he's like saying all these, it's about a puppy who lost his way, and the principal says, everybody in this audience is now dumber for having listened to you. I feel like that should be like the litmus test to every political speech. If you're going to talk, people should be able to grow and understand and come to a common ground. If you're going to talk, people need to be able to relate and better the country in a way, that is, leaving it better than the way you found it. But if you're going to sit there and spout, just random nonsense, you're doing everyone a disservice. The same thing with Hillary Clinton. I mean, I'm not just trying to hit on Trump here. I mean, Hillary Clinton, did you hear the other day? I mean, she straight up was like, we're going to raise the tax on the middle class. And everybody in that arena was like, rah! Like screaming, going crazy.
It was weird.
Yeah,
the Wall Street candidate stood up on stage with the king of Wall Street to say that they were going to, as oligarchs, pass taxes on the middle class, and like drones, they're not the bigot Republicans. I mean, that's what it's turned into, is Hollywood and the media have trained them. They're not the bigot Republicans. They're not the bigot Republicans. I mean, I wrote in 2012 that the problem was the electorate. It wasn't just the leaders. And here we are, and Rome is burning.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it all goes. I think that right now it's a crapshoot. I mean, you look at Brexit, all the polls were saying, hey, they're going to stay, and then we were talking at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're like, oh my gosh, like almost 100% of these polls were incorrect. We're completely
100%.
We're wrong, and that's how I feel. Is like that's when you really can notice the bend, the bias of the media is when they jump on these things and say, this is how it's going to be, this is the way it's going to work, this is what's going to happen, and then it doesn't. And you're like, wait, but what? And nobody points at the media and is like, wait, were you lying to us? Were you making things up?
They don't think of themselves as a player. They think of themselves as a referee, and they're supposed to act as a referee, but the referee is still human.
Yeah.
And when the referee does something wrong, there has to be a consequence.
Yeah.
And it's shocking that we have allowed our media, which is supposed to be our safeguard against, people don't understand this, but in a republic, it's not just the people versing its government when its government has done wrong. Without the media, the people don't know. This is why we gave the press near unfettered privileges when they are performing their duties. We allow them to have secrets with sources. We allow them to go places that we don't let other people go to. We allow them to pool their resources together to be in situations that normal citizens don't have the clearance to be in. There's a lot of privileges granted to citizens who are committing acts of journalism, as I like to call it, but we don't have that anymore. And we had a reporter, an editor with the Washington Post, try to mess with my friend Richard Grinnell, and he's a Fox News contributor, good guy. And they were going back and forth on Twitter, and I said, and this is what I said to her, because she said, well, she's like, she was trying to say, well, you're biased too. Well, he's a Fox News contributor. He's a commentator. She's an editor of The Fix at the Washington Post. And I said, your, quote, you are, but what am I, quote, didn't work here. You're the journalist. Your job is to edit free of bias, dirt. And that's what I want my friends in the media to understand. I understand you're going to be biased. I understand you're going to have prejudices. You are a human being with the sum of your own experiences and your own ideas and your own wants and desires. But you should try to acknowledge those and edit and write in spite of those to a broader audience in a fair way. I don't need your damn perspective. I need a report, and I need journalism to be about reporting.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that's it's so weird because sometimes I find the question is like, well, what if we had a government-sponsored press? and you're like, oh wait, that's
Right.
that's propaganda. So
Yeah.
it's entrusting privately owned businesses, organizations to report unbiased information, and it's very difficult to get in that situation and actually have somebody who can have a clear conscience by saying, hey, this is what I observed, this is what I've seen, and I
Right.
find in the blogosphere though, I mean, you have a very sometimes it's just watered down too. I mean, you have people that read other blogs, posts, and that blog read the New York Times or read somebody else, and they didn't witness it firsthand, and it's like an opinion of an opinion of an opinion, and by the time it gets to you, you're like, is this factual? you know, but I would say to be as unbiased as possible, to try to be as objective to the situation as possible, because oftentimes you see that bend, and I hate comparing this to like House of Cards and things like that, but in House of Cards, I remember specifically Doug saying like we got to get ahead of the story. We have to do this, and that, I mean, that happens. That happens in the press. That happens in news. That happens with newspapers, blogs, everything. You always want to be in front of the story. Not only do you want to be able to control the narrative, but you also want to be the first ones on it, so you can go viral, so you can get the readership and the views and all of that. But there's got to be less self-interest and more public interest invested in the press. The object should be to inform and educate, not misdirect the ignorant public.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. It's gotten absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, it's been a fun week, man. I mean, it hasn't been the week that all of us wanted. Those of us who are supporting Donald Trump. But I don't know. I'm enjoying getting used to the show with you. People peeping into our conversations here at Dissent. Last week I was at my home for our test run. Now I'm at the office. I'm gonna have to do a little bit something different with the, with the background.
It's the most Republican wall I've seen all day.
Yeah, but I mean, this is awesome, and I can't wait. We have some guests lined up, some books that we'll be promoting for people. We're going to be a lot more interactive. This is fun. I think this is fun. Is this fun?
It is most definitely fun. No, I'm super excited about it all. Just bear with us for the time being. We're still getting everything off the ground. We're getting the Twitters situated, the Facebooks, and all of that kind of stuff, so we can get our news out to you. One thing I was actually just talking to, I don't know, my dog is dreaming and he's sleeping at my feet. I don't know if you can hear him barking. This is wake up, boy. Anyway, so one thing I was talking to Ali the other day about was the information that I can gather on my Twitter feed. And whenever I joined Twitter in 2008, Ali was like, here's like 100 people you need to follow. And throughout the past 8 years, I've been able to go through and kind of filter out and add new people. And I've followed anything from Salon and Slate and BuzzFeed to right-wing news and Breitbart and all these things. And what I try to do is get an eclectic set of people I follow, so I can get the stories, I can get their bent, their bias, I can get a full spectrum, like a full view of what's happening, and I find that a lot of people that focus just on the Now This videos, the BuzzFeed videos, all of that, Huffington Post, whatever, it's just one-sided, and I would encourage everyone, when you get on Twitter, even if you are a hardcore liberal or hardcore conservative, read what the liberals have, read what the conservatives have, because it's in collecting ideas that we can all come together and agree on specific things in order to take our country back and put our country on a line to be successful. It's very sad to see how our generation that's coming is just, I mean, they're going to inherit some chaos. That's there's no question in that. But like I said, I was talking to Ali about all that. Sooner or later, I'll say maybe in the next couple weeks, we might give like a top 100 Twitter sites to follow. We may not agree with 75% of them, but we'll put that out there just to encourage people who are on Twitter who don't follow many people. Hey, check these people out. They'll give you a story, read it, decide for yourself, that sort of thing. But make sure you follow us on Twitter. Once again, Ali is at ALI. So at Ali. He's very lucky for having that. I'm super jealous. I am Devin Wills, so it's at DEVONWILLS. And then the actual show is at Dissent Show, DISSENT Show. You can, as always, you can always hashtag Dissent, and we will read your comments and comment on our next show or live at this point in time. As far as our producer, once again, I want to thank Giuseppe Cucci. He's on the backside of this, changing
Thank you.
Changing the camera angles, getting us stories, getting us content, making sure that we're hitting all the points that we need. Once again, we're still ironing.
Trying to rein Devin in on the time limits.
Yeah, the time limit. Hey, I didn't know this is the time limit. Come on now. But just trying to make sure that we're all on top of our game, and bear with us. We'll be ironing out more kinks throughout the next couple weeks, but still working on some branding and doing all that. We appreciate you following us, tuning in, watching this. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave comments. We do have a hater already. Apparently, I'm a Devin head ass. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate the hate. I wear that as a badge of honor. And so, anyways, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great week. Enjoy your Monday and the rest of your Sunday evening.
Bye, everybody.